sketchyGOichie.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of sketchyGOichie. I'm your host, artist Roger Andrews, illustrator, graphic designer. I am showing you, I'm almost embarrassed to admit, one of my very first ever Procreate drawings. Like literally, I had just bought the app, and I think I watched a couple of videos on YouTube, which is obviously my inspiration for wanting to do and share these videos with you guys, and just learn the app, just seeing, from other artists. Some of the people I watched at the time was Stafe Draws and Mike Henry YouTube channels at the time. This was, now a couple years ago now. I would say 2017 maybe, or 16, I'm not sure. Might have been tail end of 16 when I got this the iPad Pro. So feel free to fact check me, because I am not going to do it. I'll leave that to you. But yeah, one of my very first sketches, so it's me figuring out which brush I want to use. Probably what brush I used here was the studio brush. Me figuring out the thickness of the line, me figuring out that I need to use the opacity at 100% in order to get this thick and thin. Me probably playing around with some of the settings to achieve that thick and thin line weight and quality that I like to have on these to give this graphic nature. And in terms of rendering the zombie, so if you're talking, if it really is 2017, you figure Walking Dead is still super popular. Game of Thrones with the whites and the White Walkers, mega popular. And so that's probably why the inspiration for me to render this character came from. Oftentimes for me, I just, I literally freestyle. And so when I open up, any blank document in, whether it be Photoshop or in, I very seldom render in Photoshop. Let's be honest. I'm going to render on paper and then scan it into Photoshop. But once I got a hold of this iPad and started using Procreate, it became my my sketch pad. It became my actual drawing surface. And so when I'm rendering this zombie, the how-to part of it, it really is just taking in inspiration from Walking Dead or the Whites, whatever it was from Game of Thrones, and sort of utilizing that sort of what they do in terms of the sort of established norms, the visual sort of language of a zombie, and incorporating that into this piece. And then of course I had to give it sort of a cartoony slant. It's a stylistic thing. It's something I think it's kind of my default position for when I want to render something kind of quickly. So for whenever you guys see me rendering in some of my other videos where it's a little more realistic, and by realistic I mean still cartoon realism, if you want to call it that illustrative, those pieces I did, those sort of portrait images. If I were to render it in that style, clearly I would, I'd find a photo and I'd work from that. But this is just freestyle right out of the brain, and so that's why it looks the way it does. And technique-wise, it's just literally, it's line art. It's me, again, feeling out the app, trying different brushes. Right there, I throw that little sort of like half-tone brush in the background to give it sort of a graphic. I wanted to fill that space and emphasize that really gnarly, like lower mandible jaw thing happening, and that gore and stuff that's on the teeth. And hopefully it's not too much scary an image for kids. It is still a goofy sort of character, despite the fact that he's got this kind of gory look to him. And that's that. One of my very first ever Procreate drawings, done a couple years ago. I thought I'd share. Sharing is caring. So I care about sketchyGOichie, so sketchyGOichie, live your moment. Happy sketching, y'all. Peace.